Hello friends, Jill and Nathan here. Welcome back to Whispering Willow Farm. As you just saw, all that broccoli, I've had a pretty busy morning.
Yeah, you have.
We have come into the tunnel because it's warm. When I woke up this morning, it was like 20 degrees and I'm outside realizing I put no frost cover on any of my outside beds. Now I have harvested the bulk of everything out there. On New Year's Day, we came out and harvested carrots, cabbage. We made a bunch of fermented things. We did 1 gallon batches of fermented spicy carrots, dill carrots. We've made ginger kraut. We've made sauerkraut. And so I wasn't really concerned, but it did kind of take a hit. So I came out this morning, harvested the rest of my broccoli. I've got it drying on the counter and we're going to put it up in the freeze dryer. And then that got Nathan and I thinking. Just this week, we knew that the temps were dropping. I was supposed to get down to like 10, 12 degrees. And so we were thinking through winterizing the farm and what that looked like. And we actually wanted to just talk through that process with you guys. Granted, most of you guys are probably already in the dead of winter. We're in Arkansas, so usually our winters don't hit until January, February. I mean, just last week, it was what, 80 degrees here?
Well, it was... yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas. Day. It was 80 degrees. And so we don't really have to think about these things until this time of year. But if you're in northern climates, more than likely you already have your farm completely winterized and you are the expert, you know what you're doing. But for all you southern folks who maybe need that friendly reminder, we're going to kind of just tell you guys the checklist that we go through when it comes to winterizing our farm, making sure everything's snug, nothing's busted, and everything's kind of just staying in place. Nathan actually found our thermostat. The winds here have been insane. So it actually gusted open the back door of our tunnel, kind of broke the panel off the back door, threw our thermostat all the way over here by the pigs. That is wild. So obviously I have a lot of help when it comes to winterizing the farm. In fact, for the most part, Nathan winterized the farm for me this year. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So why don't you just talk through some of the things, why we do it, and what the purpose of it is.
Well, Jeremiah and Ben Turn spent a lot of time running irrigation everywhere you need irrigation. So with that being said, we didn't want any water in the lines. Just to freeze and bust, because I sure as heck don't have the equipment to go and dig up pipe and replace it. So,
and that's actually happened too in the beds that we already replaced irrigation. That's what happened, is water had backed up and ended up busting it.
Right.
And we had to replace it.
Yeah, it busted the shutoff valves, the ball valves that were poly. So basically the first thing that I did was go to the pump house and I turned off the water to the farm. Left the pump running so it would stay primed, but basically shut off the water to the farm, plugged in a heater, shut the door, and that's fine. I actually checked on that today, and it's a good cozy 60 plus degrees in there.
Good, so. Yeah, so we actually will be hand watering moving forward. We will not be using really any of the irrigation. Most of the things that need to be watered would be in the tunnel. I'll water those every few days, and you'll have to go in, turn on the water in the well house to the farm, and then I'll just hand water that. I think it'll just be easier, especially for some reason we forgot and didn't turn it off and you get water in there. It just kind of becomes a pain and really kind of a liability at this point.
Right.
And so that's how we're going to be doing that moving forward. Also too, I know that we've got this tunnel over here. I don't know if you guys can see it because it's super bright, but this will get finished hopefully by this week. And so I am thinking through like what heaters that I need to buy for this as well. So when it comes to winterizing the farm, Nathan's handling well houses, irrigation, making sure all the water hoses are unhooked. I'm thinking about things I need on hand moving into seed starting season as well. You guys know, like, we're in January, it's here. The end of the month I'm going to be doing those things, February especially. So make sure if you are starting seeds outside in a greenhouse, you do have a heat source for that. You have heaters bought, your heat mats, things like that. That's also really kind of crucial and important when you think about, you know, the things you need in place on your farm. Having a heater for your well house, having a heater for your greenhouses, even if your tunnels, you end up heating those, that's something that you definitely need to be thinking about.
Absolutely.
If you are new to farming and gardening, and maybe you've set up irrigation for the first time this year, I know when, you know, the first time someone asked me, oh, how do you winterize your farm? I kind of like gave that weird look like, what do you mean winterize my farm? I really didn't know what they were talking about. And sometimes you just need a visual, you know, and so we're gonna go back into the tunnel real quick, and I'm gonna let Nathan actually show you what that looks like. That way, if you maybe did stall in or irrigation for the first time this year. Another thing I will mention, like I said here, our winter's kind of hit late, but if you do have a lot of things still out in your garden that you planted throughout the winter to harvest early spring, maybe some of your brassicas or root vegetables, definitely make sure you have frost protection on them. That way you're not killing them all, because the harsh winters will do that. It'll just damage it for us. Any of our damaged food, which I did have a couple broccolis that were damaged, we're able to feed it to our pigs. But say you don't have animals, you don't want to have spent all that time just to throw it away or have to, you know, just waste it. And so make sure you have, you know, your frost covers. Make sure you're checking your forecast. And also, if you do have your frost cover on there and it ends up still being cold but the sun's out, you want to make sure that you go out there during the day and remove that frost cover, because otherwise, even if it's 20 degrees outside but you've got good sunlight, you're gonna bake all your vegetables, and more than likely you're gonna ruin them. They're gonna start, if you walk through your garden and smell something funky at all. I mean, our high tunnel right now, I mean, it's cold, and it's probably 30 something degrees here, and we just walked in that tunnel and it's over 60 degrees. Over 60 degrees. And so that is something to keep in mind too, that more than likely you're just putting that cover on at night and you're removing it during the day. And same with the tunnels, you know, I go in, and if it's just really, you know, even if it's 30, 40 degrees, but the sun's blaring, I'm gonna still come and roll up the sides of the tunnel or roll down the sides of the tunnel, and I'll roll them back up at night. And so that's just something that it's really kind of time consuming this time of year, but I just tell myself this is just such a short season that we really have to like do this type of stuff, and it's worth it because I've spent a lot of time on these crops that I don't want to ruin them. Well, and purpose of this video is to inform you guys. You know, unfortunately we've learned the hard way in the past, and so this is just something that we've learned along the way, and we're trying to pass on to you guys. We've had busted water pipes, we've not disconnected water hoses, we've lost big time crops. We've lost big crops. We've even, unfortunately, like last year with the crazy snowstorm, we were snowed in here, like we lost animals. I mean, that's, you only have to go through that one time to realize to do things differently. Make sure your animals have bedding. That's something that we do. We make sure all of our animals have hay and straw, and they've got shelters, and we make sure that their water's broken every morning. So it's definitely things that you have to think through when it comes to farming and gardening in the winter. You can get through it, trust me. I know you northerners probably are way more experienced than Nathan and I are. I'm talking mainly to my southern folks here who were just not really used to those cold temperatures. We just want to ensure that you guys make sure your farm is taken care of. So let's head in here and show them what you did. Sure. It actually kind of smells a little funky in here because it is so hot. It's humid. I mean, we've just got, it's dripping from the ceilings when you come in and shut the door. You guys even seen it kind of got a little foggy in here. I'd be willing to bet it's probably 70 degrees. It's probably at least 70 degrees in here. So I'm going to come in today and harvest a bunch of cauliflower. Start harvesting some of these Brussels sprouts, and really just start. This is the time of year too that everything else, after we've winterized the farm, everything else is just not as hectic as it is in the spring and the summertime. So this is a good time to kind of preserve, start amending your beds, figuring out your crop plans, figuring out your plans, ordering your seeds, things like that. And so it's kind of a shift in one direction and a slowdown in another, if that makes sense. All right, what you got, babe? Well,
you know, we have set up irrigation to make things easier in this tunnel, and so we've got our water coming in here, and so basically all I did, I didn't have to turn this ball valve off because I turned, you know, the water off at the pump house, but basically all I did was unhook the water hoses, just kind of lift them up, get all the water out of the lines so they don't freeze and bust. Not that we have to worry about it in here, but that's what I did with all the hoses on the outside. But basically you don't want any standing water in your pipes, especially if it's above ground level, just because it will freeze. So luckily we do have all these frost-free hydrants that are buried, you know, I think they're 2 foot in the ground, and so that should be below the freeze line. We'll find out.
So another thing is, if they were to unhook the irrigation, say maybe out in their raised bed gardens, do you think it's important that they undo it from here and make sure that the water's out of the line as well, or do you think that that's not really that big of a deal?
Well, my experience with drip irrigation is, especially if you're set up on an automatic timer, you know, when that timer goes off, you know, I mean, this line's flat.
Yeah.
You know, there's no water in there.
Yeah. So that's just maybe something to be mindful of. Make sure all the water has drained out of your irrigation lines.
Yeah, you can unhook the irrigation from the main line and just kind of lift it up. Yeah. You know, just so all the water goes out. That's what I do with the water hoses. So. Yeah. But this stuff also expands better than PVC, so it will.
I guess it kind of depends on what kind of drip that you're dealing with.
Right.
Yeah. So for the most part, it's not a long list of things that we're doing to winterize our farm. However, it is an essential list. So even though there's just a few things, making sure the heater's on in the well pump, making sure that we have disconnected all the water hose and got all the water out of the line, making sure we have, just the heaters in place, the frost cover on if we're needing that. It really doesn't take a lot. You just kind of got to be ahead of the game and make sure, because like Nathan said, you know, even if we missed this by a day, that could have been detrimental. And so this time of year, we are constantly checking that 10-day forecast. We are constantly making sure everything's in place that needs to be in place, especially when it comes to our animals too. I mean, this time of year, the water's freezing. And I know this is common sense, but I know that a lot of times, if you're a beginner gardener, these are things you just don't realize. You may not even realize that, you know, your animal's water would freeze so quickly. You know, and so that's something too. Every morning we're coming out, we're busting out water, we're making sure we're giving new water, we're making sure, you know, hay and straw is in there. I know a lot of people ask us about our dogs. What do we do with our dogs? Lily is our blue heeler. She's the short-haired dog. So when it gets cold, we bring her in. However, Simba stays out here, and this is what he's bred for. He struggles in the summertime. But in the wintertime, I came out here this morning, it was 20 degrees, and Simba is just running the entire chicken yard. Like, he is just having the best time of his life. So he is bred for that. Certain animals they're totally fine. It's not that big of a deal. It's just something to be mindful of. We'll come out here and check on them often. But
I remember last February when we got all the snow, Simba just literally laid out in the snow. Like, he is just fine. He loves it. He's
fine. He loves it. So know your animals, know their needs, what they need. But we thought we'd do this video because I really just thought it was kind of important. We get asked that a lot. I know a lot of people just, they don't maybe even think about it, especially if they're like a beginner gardener and they've just started farming. They maybe don't know to think through some of these things. And so I thought it would be helpful. But do you have I think I have a knife on me. I wanted to harvest. I don't have my big harvesting knife. I left it inside. I want to harvest one of these cauliflowers with you guys real quick.
Heck yeah.
Yeah. Here's the cauliflower. I'm trying to see. I don't even think there was a variety. These were the plants that I bought from the co-op. This is just normal cauliflower. Look how big that is though. That's awesome. This is probably like one of my first years successfully growing this. I recommend having the proper tools, which I don't. I just got my little open nail knife. That's all right. All right. Are we ready for this?
Oh my goodness.
I know, the pigs are gonna love all these leaves. Woo! It's one thing I love about having a tunnel is it's like, you know, 30 degrees outside and we're burning up in here, harvesting all this produce.
Look at both of those beautiful heads.
Thank you. Look how good that looks.
That is.
There's a little buggy on there.
That's the size of my head.
I know, the thing's huge. All right, that's awesome.
Heck yeah,
So,
cauliflower rice tonight.
Cauliflower rice tonight with some hamburger steak. That's the one thing too though, is if you're growing in a tunnel, these are things you don't have to worry about. If you guys can see, I had insect netting on here. I took that off when all these things started getting bigger and just the pests started to go away. But I don't have anything on here and everything in here is fine. And this tunnel isn't even really sealed up. I mean, it is, but on the corners, there's gaps, there's a lot of air coming through, and it's still totally fine. I mean, it's obviously doing what it needs to be doing. Our vegetables are still thriving. So this is my little friendly reminder. If you've been thinking about getting a high tunnel, here's your reason to get it, because I don't even want to be outside right now, but I can come in here, see food growing. It's just a sense of accomplishment. It really makes me, like, gives me that push to get through the winter and look forward to the spring out in the main garden. But look at that.
Thank you, Jess and Maya.
Thank you, Jess and Maya. Thank you,
For
Grower Solution. I'm pretty sure that's where this tunnel came from. But yeah, it's just, we still have so much food growing in here. That's really, really awesome. All right, babe, what is on your list for the rest of the day?
My list today is to...
Hush, Lily.
I don't know.
Do you need a list?
I've got a list. I just
You can't think of it right now.
I've got my list, and then I've got
Mama's
Jill's
list.
list, which is the main list.
Yeah.
So.
Well, my list is going to be harvesting most of this cauliflower. It's probably what I'm going to be doing the rest of the week, is like harvesting most of the rest of the stuff out in the raised bed, which is just a few cabbages and some carrots. I got to wait for the ground to thaw before I can do that, and then slowly start harvesting this cauliflower. The good thing about it is we just kind of chop it up finely and we'll make it into cauliflower rice and vacuum seal it, so it's really easy to preserve. That's really all we're doing. It's just chopping it up and freezing it. So,
but we eat a lot of cauliflower rice.
We do. This will be the first time I've really successfully grown cauliflower. So
I think it's because of the tunnel.
Definitely because of the tunnel. Having the cover, I always deal with it. If I have row cover, even if I don't, them rotting, just because of even though it's cold, the hot days, when the leaves are kind of all folded over it, I just realize, like, I have a hard time with it just kind of rotting. It starts to smell really funky. If you
don't have a high tunnel and the cauliflower blooms and you don't get it within the next couple days, then our experience, it goes bad. So.
Yeah, for sure. But thank you guys so much for hanging out with us today. I hope that this little checklist and running you guys through what we do to winterize our farm helps you think through how you can do this for your farm if you haven't already. I hope you guys are staying warm, but thanks for hanging out with us. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.